What is going on, everybody? I am Rob Westerman of GBP Daily, and as you can see, I've got a fun guest joining me today, and Andy Herman from the Pack a Day podcast. Someone I listen to just about every day and have been for quite some time now. Andy, thanks for joining me. And are you rested up from yesterday's cut down day?
Hey, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate that you're a frequent watcher of the show. That means a ton. Yeah, it was a crazy day yesterday. A couple late nights getting the videos out and talking about everything. But yes, I'm well rested. I'm ready to go, and I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. It was definitely a wild day, as it always is. A few surprises I was caught off guard by, but if you want to dive deep into all the cuts that were made, Andy just posted a video this morning analyzing everything you need to know about the initial 53. So be sure to check that out after this video, because instead of going through the latest on what's going on with the team and kind of rehashing things that you already talk about daily, I wanted to give you some sort of a break, if you will, and do a video on how you yourself became a Packers fan, how you begun to dive into covering the Packers, and eventually that will lead us to where you are now, which is covering the team full time. And to get things kicked off, I'm curious to know when your fandom started. I've seen a photo you posted of yourself when you were a kid with papers everywhere, getting ready for the NFL draft. I've heard you tell stories of Packer games you went to when you were younger. Were you raised in a We Are Packers fans household, or what's the reason behind you being a Packers fan?
Yeah, that's sort of an interesting story. So I think the easiest starting point is I was raised in Green Bay. I was born in Manitowoc. I moved to Green Bay like a week later. So I was basically, born and raised for all intents and purposes in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And I mean, first of all, that mostly starts with you being a Packer fan in some capacity. I will say this: my family, they're fans, but it's not that big of a deal to them. They somehow, in the whole scheme of things, they had season tickets though, which was really amazing,
Nice.
especially for two people that were like kind of indifferent to the Packers, but I think they enjoyed the experience of going to games and seeing friends and things like that. So I think that was kind of the cool part of it. They didn't, they would have the game on kind of in the background, but it wouldn't really, they'd be doing a bunch of other stuff. It wasn't as intent or whatever. So it wasn't like I was in this house that was like decked out in green and gold or everything was insane or anything like that. It was just, the season ticket thing. And that was kind of it. But for me, before we even get to kind of the season ticket thing, I just remember being drawn to NFL football like immediately. Like the first time it was on, like I didn't want to stop watching, and I had all these questions and how did the game work, and I just was so inquisitive on everything, and it was just something I was immediately drawn to. And then, as far as I can remember, the first game that I ever went to with my dad was Packers Bengals 92, where Don Mikowski goes down injured. In comes Brett Favre, throws the touchdown to Kittrick Taylor. My end zone seats are in the north end zone, right where Favre threw the touchdown to Kittrick Taylor. My dad lifts me up. I see the touchdown in the back of the end zone. And when that's your first game and it was already something that you were drawn to, you're basically just baptized in green and gold at that point. There's no other route my life could have taken from there on out. So it was basically written for me. But that was the crux and the starting point. But it was really something I was, regardless of everything else, immediately drawn to the first time that it was on, or that I saw it on.
Right. Yeah. What a first, yeah, kind of a birth into Packers fandom, and then to be there with your dad.
Yeah.
On top of that is just wild. Me personally, whenever I'm asked, like how long I've been a Packers fan, I've always said since birth.
Yep.
Like I told you earlier, the majority of my family is from across Wisconsin, and whether it be with my dad, similar to you, like meeting Ray Nitschke when I was 18 months old, or toddler photos of Packers gear on, all the way into grade school, wearing my Reebok mesh, Ahman Green jersey for school pictures, reluctantly. And it's just always been a part of who I am, really, ever since I can remember. So yeah, what a cool moment for your dad. So is your dad a Packers fan as well? And is he tuning in to your shows quite often, or how does that work?
Yeah. So again, sort of the same situation is like, they will put the Packers on in the background, but it's not anything like they're hardcore fans or anything like that. And they'll tune in from time to time. They'll put the YouTube show on, and definitely listen, and they'll, call and ask me questions about it from time to time. So that's and same thing with my mom. So that's a really cool aspect of it. But yeah, I think again, they're more what I would consider kind of casual fans, and they like the team. They support the team. Again, the game's on anytime there's a Packer game on, but nothing too crazy. It's not part of their world like it is obviously for me, or for I think a lot of like hardcore Packer fans.
Right. No, that's cool. All right, let's fast forward to high school and college. What did you want to be when you grew up, so to speak? And I know you talked about your old website, Scotty Sports. What were some of the things, a little throwback there? What were some of the things you were doing in your young adult years as far as creating content about the Packers?
Yeah. So growing up, basically my entire life, I kind of knew I always wanted to be a teacher. That was my goal. And that's kind of what I always knew I wanted to do. Graduated high school, went to college, went to UW Oshkosh, and my two. So just a very small story on me is if it's something that I'm passionate about, as you guys can probably tell with Pack-A-Day and everything I do Packers, I'm going to run through every wall and do everything I can to do, to crush it as best as I can. If it's something I hate, like if I had to talk about, I don't know, the Vikings every day or whatever, if it was something I hated, it's a lot different story. It's hard for me to get motivated, excited about it. And I just kind of mail it in and just whatever. The two subjects that I hated more than anything in the world growing up were science and foreign language. I just could not get motivated by it for whatever reason, just was not my cup of tea. And I get to Oshkosh, and in order to get into the teaching program, they basically tell you can either take 16 credits of science or 16 credits of foreign language. You can be the, College of Arts and Science, or the whatever the other one was. I don't even remember anymore, but I had those two choices. So I chose science. I did terrible in science. I started taking some of my stuff towards like the teaching stuff and did all amazing stuff on that. All the other gen eds were good, but my science just completely tanked me. And my GPA wasn't good enough to get into the school of or the education. And then so what I decided to do, let me get my history degree, and then I will go and get my teaching certificate after that. So I get my history degree from UW Oshkosh. And then I apply to Mount St. Mary's and get in. I'm going to be part of their teaching program. But at the same time, I had just gotten married. My wife had an amazing job lined up. She was just graduating school in Madison. Mount St. Mary's is in Milwaukee. And we would have had to like live midway through Milwaukee and Madison. And it just didn't make sense that here I was going to be more of a drain going to school more. She had this amazing job. We'd have to live in a really bad situation where we both had to commute a crappy way. Like it just didn't make sense. So long story short, I decided, let me just start working and I'll kind of work my way up. And that's what I did. And it worked out great. I have no regrets over it. And then on the side, it was sort of the first time that I wanted to, or I had like an itch of like, all right, can I do something, sports related or whatever, having no expectations of anything whatsoever. Started a blog called SconnieSports.com that was basically, read by like 4 people, which were like 3 friends and somebody who stumbled upon it by accident. And, it was a lot of the stuff that I do, writing about when I started writing about the Packers for Cheesehead TV and Packer Report and things like that. Eventually, just nobody really knew it was out there. I also wrote about the Badgers, the Bucks, the Brewers, and things like that, because those were things that I was passionate about as well. But like I said, it ended up not really amounting to much, except for it did then parlay into a small writing gig with Titletown Sound Off, which parlayed into Cheesehead TV, which parlayed into Packer Report, and we can kind of go from there. But that was sort of the crux of everything to begin with. Is the teaching route did not turn out, thanks to science classes that I hated and couldn't get myself motivated for, and the rest was kind of history, and it all worked out perfect.
Yeah, that's great. Everything happens for a reason, and thankfully, you did go that route. Now you're covering the team full time. During the college, high school days, I've been pretty lucky. There's been social media at my fingers, since junior high school. So there's always been like a constant, instant news cycle, especially for sports, which is mainly what I use social media for anyways. What were your resources? And I'm not trying to date you here, but what were your resources for keeping up to date, like day to day with Packers information, Packers content? Was it, articles? Was it videos on YouTube yet? Like, what were you really absorbing at that time?
Yeah, it was primarily articles. JS Online was a big one, obviously the Press Gazette and everything like that. You know, they were two separate entities, obviously at the time. Those were the two big ones, but kind of the same that I still feel today is like I kind of always wanted to have my own thoughts and opinions on everything. So a lot of the times it was watching the games and forming my own thoughts on what was going on and everything like that. I remember very clearly. I think I've told Aaron this in the past, but when Twitter first started and everyone's like, oh, you got to get on Twitter and everything like that.
Yeah.
And there were people like Aaron Nagler who are like, like everyone's like, oh, you got to follow Aaron Nagler on Twitter. I'm like, he doesn't cover the team. Why would I want to cover, or why would I want to, listen to anyone tweet about the team that's not covering the team? I'm like, I can do that. And then of course, like I eventually followed Aaron. Aaron was amazing. And, obviously I work with him and, do stuff on Cheesehead TV and everything else. So it's just funny that like my initial thought was like, I only want to, watch the people cover the team. Who needs anyone else? And then of course I became somebody else that wasn't, in an official status covering the team for so long. So it was just a interesting roundabout way, but it definitely started with a lot of reading articles and just, again, kind of formulating my own opinions on stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's kind of how I started off too, was just like, all right, who's the main guys and who's, actually working for or working to cover the team. And I kind of have the same feeling as you. It's like, well, these guys are just kind of doing the same thing that I can do on my own. But then lo and behold, I start following these guys and gals, and turns out, watching or listening or reading all their opinions along with everybody else, and then kind of shaping my own based off of a lot of the information I see from them, whether they're, boots on the ground type things, since I'm down here in Iowa now. I could only really watch the broadcast on TV outside of, not really attending practice, or I'm not a huge film guru guy. So I wasn't, diving into the film a ton and kind of forming my own opinions. So just kind of taking everybody's thoughts, observations, and then kind of mixing it with my own. And then, here I am spewing out whatever comes to mind. So, anyways, I was watching the other day, and you said it was your 2,223rd consecutive day of the Pack a Day podcast. Congratulations. That's awesome, by the way. Never missing a day. I know, because I'm constantly absorbing all the content you put out on a daily basis. But let's rewind to the time period leading up to starting the Pack a Day podcast. What's the reason behind starting it? And just as important, how have you been able to manage never missing a day?
Yeah. So as far as how it started, so I, as I mentioned, kind of transitioned from Scotty Sports to Titletown Sound Off, and had started writing for Cheesehead TV. Things were kind of picking up. I was doing the weekly grades and some deep dive scouting reports, was getting a little bit more of a following on Twitter. And, it was around the time where obviously podcasts were becoming more and more popular, and anyone that had like any sort of specialty on a topic was involved in a podcast in some way. Quite frankly, I didn't really want to do it, but I knew I probably needed to either be on somebody's podcast as a weekly whatever, or start my own or do something. So it was in the back of my head. I had I had one kind of format in mind, which was kind of the New York Times is The Daily, which is a daily news show that they do. That's about a 20 to 25 minute episode that covers one specific news topic. At the time, it was Monday through Friday. And they just kind of did a deep dive on that one topic. And I kind of felt like, hey, I think there'd be a really cool appetite to do something similar, but just for Packers, and have it Monday through Friday, one specific topic, talk about that. And then the other thing that was in my head, and this may have come a little bit later, I can't remember when Last Week Tonight came out with John Oliver, but sort of the format of, how John will start with, here's some snippets of what happened in the past week, and then do the deep dive at the end. So that was kind of the format of, all right, here's what you need to know today. And then now here's our deep dive topic of what we want to talk about. So that was kind of my idea. And then I was still kind of like putting it off. And for anyone that needs to know how I operate, if I don't just do something, I will never do it. I will constantly just keep, putting it down the road. So I just have to rip the Band-Aid and just immediately start it. And as soon as I thought of the name, I was watching a show. There was a commercial on that was about stopping cigarette smoking. And it was like something like, Cecilia smokes 10 packs a day. And I'm like, packs a day, pack a day, a daily pack a day podcast. And I'm like,
Right.
oh, that's amazing. So literally within 10 minutes of hearing that, the pack a day, and thinking of pack a day, I posted a message out on Twitter, because my idea was it would not be me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I would do Monday, somebody would do Tuesday, somebody would do Wednesday, somebody would do Thursday, and somebody would do Friday. I'd have 5 hosts. We'd each do one day. We'd be one podcast, and that would be it. So I put out a message on Twitter immediately saying, hey, who would be interested in doing this with me? Thinking I'd get like a handful of people who might be interested. I would reach out to a couple other people, and we'd eventually put together a team of 5 and figure this out. Well, lo and behold, over 200 people reached out with interest and applied that they wanted to be part of this podcast. So I had to, like, the hardest part of the entire podcast process to this day was going through like 230 some people and trying to narrow it down and figure out what I wanted to do. The great thing is we had so many great people that I ended up keeping over 20 people. And instead of doing a daily with one person and doing 5 days a week, we set up 7 days a week with about 3 people on each day. And then having some alternates as well in case people miss days. And to this day, the best thing about the entire process was the people I picked, not because of their knowledge of sports, which is exceedingly high, and their beautiful ability to cover the Packers, but for the amazing human beings that they are. And the work and time and effort and energy that they have put into this for over 6 years now. And obviously some people have come, some people have gone, and that's awesome. Some people have gone on to different things, which is really part of the piece of the process as well. I want people to be able to, get that recognition and hopefully kind of go and do their own things, which has definitely happened for a lot of people. But to be able to kind of put that together and have all those amazing people join. And we have now teams like Dusty, Steve, and Sarah. Like, that was a team that got put together, and Sarah came later, but Dusty and Steve started pretty early on. And then Sarah came on, and like those guys have become close friends just because of this random thing that happened. And Andrew and Kyle, same thing. And then eventually Maggie joining that team, and Jason and Mark. And like, these people have been doing it now for 5-6 years, working together and collaborating and doing all this awesome stuff. So kind of the coolest part of the process is these teams that have come together, these friendships that have been formed, these bonds that have been made. And that's been a really cool part of the process. And then that was it. We started in July of that year. It was, I think, I don't know, maybe April, May that I put out the message. Maybe it was earlier than that. But we started July of that year, and we never missed a day. And that is in large part due to the fact that these amazing people, do their episode every single time when it's supposed to be done. I immediately thought, like, I'm going to have to cover for these guys, 2 times a week. And I think I've probably in over 6 years, maybe covered for 5 to 10 episodes, maybe total in my entire time. Like, it just, they are the best people in the world. And I'm so lucky to get to work with them every single day.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's the community aspect that you built. And I've got to witness kind of along the way since the start. Which is great. And then, like you said, other people kind of moving on to do other things. And a lot of them that I've seen are doing other content related things and kind of use Pack-A-Day as a starting point. And similar to what you did with Cheese at TV or Packer Report or even Scotty Sports to begin everything. So props to you for getting things rolling. I'm similar. I'll talk about something and I'll say, I'll get to it next Monday. And next Monday comes and I'll be all right, well, on next Monday. And then it'll go on for forever. Unless I just sit down and do it, or, talk to my wife and say, I got to do this. And she's pretty good at getting on me and say, hey, you said you're going to do this. Like, if you're not going to do it, I don't want to hear about it anymore. And if you are, then just, go down and get it done, sort of thing. But similar to kind of where, how you built relationships. As I told you earlier, my family's from La Crosse, but I've been in Cedar Falls, Iowa since I was 4 or 5. And so being the only Packer fan, one of the very few, especially in my grade, I can't even think of one right now that comes to mind in my entire grade that is also a Packers fan. So growing up, being the only Packers fan, at first it was kind of like, I can't really relate to anybody on a sports or NFL level. And then as I got older, it was kind of cool because I was the only Packer fan. So that was pretty cool. But that kind of led me to really dive into the online social media Packers fans and get to know folks that now I've known for, over a decade and have become close friends with just because they were a Packer fan. I somehow saw their account or profile or post or whatever. And, what starts off as a couple interactions turns into, exchanging phone numbers, texting, calling, or whatever all the time. So props to you. You've got quite a community and a fun one to follow along with. As I mentioned earlier, you're now covering the team full time. And I want to know what the biggest challenge is since you made the switch and the biggest reward now that you're covering the Packers full time.
Yeah, the second one's the easiest. I mean, I get to cover the team that I love 365 days a year and talk about Packers for a living. Like you could not have set up a better dream scenario for me.
Right.
I know I said I wanted to be a teacher growing up. That was kind of my thing, but like, I don't know. I just kind of always had this thing in the back of my head of like, it's so hard to get into sports. Like how, where do you even start? And I probably would have gone maybe a different direction in college and stuff if I had thought about it a little bit more, but it all worked out exactly the way that it was supposed to. So I'm not looking to butterfly effect anything here. So yeah, it all worked out amazing. But that's easily the best. And again, the people that I get to work with too, in the Packers community is so freaking amazing. So that part of it is amazing. The challenge is, as far as covering it full time, all of it is, water under the bridge. It's nothing. I have no complaints. Let's just put it that way. It definitely, there was a piece of me that so obviously forever I was doing this full-time job, obviously 2 kids, family, and doing the Packer stuff on the side. So as soon as the full-time job was gone and out of the picture and I could do this full time, clearly I was going to have way more time on my hands and I was going to be able to, relax a little bit. It has been, once you start doing it as your own thing, you look at every, minute as an opportunity to kind of enhance your brand or put out extra content or work on, trying to make the episode that you're going to do even better. And, it ends up, again, it's a labor of love, but there's a lot of work and time and effort that goes into it. And it's a beautiful thing. I enjoy every second of it, but I would say, the hard parts are usually when I get to like, 12, 1 in the morning, podcast isn't done yet. And I'm like, man, I really just want to go to bed, but it's 1 in the morning. I have to still record this thing and edit and upload. And sometimes it's 2:30, 3 in the morning. Last night was 3 in the morning when I got to bed, just kind of after uploading everything. So those are just parts of it sometime. And there's other days where obviously it's not that. It's a lot easier. And there's a lot of, ability to kind of reboot a little bit. But that's probably the only thing, but there's no downside here. It is a dream job and I'm loving every second of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure like yourself, I have a love-hate relationship with primetime games, starting at least for us in the central time zone, 7:30, getting over it. 10:30, creeping up towards 11, then press conferences, and then it's time to start rolling out some content. And next thing you know, like yourself last night, it's 2, 3 a.m. So you'll never catch me complaining about a Packers game regardless. But one last thing here. Is there any advice you have for people wanting to or just starting out creating content, whether it be for the Packers or just in general?
Yeah, I think a couple things. I think one, you have to be passionate about something and you've got to be somewhat unique in the space because while Packer fans are insanely lucky that we have all of these amazing voices in the Packer sphere, and obviously it doesn't need to be Packers if you have something else as a passion, but it's not overcrowded, but it's definitely crowded with people who are doing really amazing work already. So you have to make it so that yours is something unique, something special, something passionate that people are going to be drawn to. People will ask all the time of like, well, where should I start? And it's like, well, what really interests you? And, different people are going to have different, like Dusty Evely loves diving in to especially the offensive side of the tape and breaking down specific plays and things like that. And he does such a wonderful job at it. And it's so engaging listening to him talk about it because you can tell that he's passionate about it. And, other people have an extreme passion for the draft. Other people, like there's different sides of it. There's different aspects. Brandon Thorne, who covers the NFL, is just an offensive line guru. And he just loves breaking down offensive line play. And there's an appetite, like you have to find sort of your niche kind of to begin with of like, what's going to be different, what's going to set you apart. I think that's number one. And it starts with what your passion is, to like do that first. And then you can kind of branch out from there once you've created a little bit more of a space for yourself. And then the second thing is kind of the advice that I give to myself, or what I did, with the podcast, is you just have to start. Mine started with a crappy blog that nobody read, and that was it. And it was, like I said, there was a lot of days where I would do an insane amount of work writing about 4 different teams, and 3 people would read it. And it was completely thankless. It was completely tireless, but I enjoyed doing it. So I was going to do it. But um, having that, library of articles that I had done allowed me to bring that library of articles and show it to Titletown Sound Off and say, hey, here's what I kind of do. Would you be interested in me writing about the Packers on your site? And then I wrote about the Packers, which, again, Titletown Sound Off wasn't like this insanely highly viewed Packers blog, but it had a little bit of a following. But I had one article that kind of went viral there. And then I was able to do a guest article because of that over on Cheesehead TV. And that one little, or that time with Titletown Sound Off and that one guest article on Cheesehead TV led to a full opportunity on Cheesehead TV, which led to the opportunity to be on Green Bay Nation on TV, which led to all the radio hits that I've been doing with Marcus Eversole and a bunch of other people ever since, which led to the podcast, which led to Packer Report, which led to me being credentialed, which led to me being here. And it's just that first little, let me start my own blog and see what happens, and just start writing every day, to everything that it is now. And you don't know what that thing is going to be. And sometimes you do all of that stuff for nothing for a while, and it's thankless. And all of a sudden one thing catches on, and there's just an exponential growth because of it. And it goes from there. And, so the 2 things: find what you're passionate about, try to do that first. And then number 2, just do it, because if you don't start, you're never going to get to where you want to go.
Right. Yeah. Good. Great points in there. I remember YouTuber, gosh, I think it was Mr. Beast. He had said, everybody always asks me, tips on making YouTube videos and all that sort of stuff. And he always, at least he said, he always told them, make 100 videos and then come back to me with your questions and I'll be happy to answer them. And he said, 98% of people don't ever get to 100 videos, and the 2% that don't have any questions because they just figured it out along the way and have kind of made it into their own, which is, like you said, kind of what you just kind of have to do. Do something you're passionate about and find your own little thing that makes you stand out. So all great points.
On that really quick. So I had been doing the audio podcast for a few years before I started the YouTube side, and go watch the first YouTube video, and it is hilariously bad. Like it's just a blank wall right over here. I had my YouTube or my laptop camera. I had no microphone other than my laptop microphone. It looks like crap. It sounds like crap. Like, content's fine. It is what it is. I had been doing it for some time at that, but there was no backdrop. There's no nothing. It was brutal. And then you just, like I said, but I just had to start doing it, gain a little bit of a following on that. And then over time, you get a different backdrop, you get a better microphone, you get a better system, you get a better HD camera. You just do one little thing at a time. But go watch the first one. It's just hilariously bad, but you just take the leap and then you upgrade it and continue to get better over time.
Yeah, absolutely. I will go back and check out the first episode. I'll hold you to that. Before we head out of here, I thought it'd be fun to do a little rapid fire with Packers related questions, and then we can call it. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. You're at Lambeau Field for a game. We're talking weather here. Would you rather have a snow game or sunny and 75 game?
I'm old now. I'll take sunny and 75. Actually, I would probably take sunny and 60s in the stadium. You get some of those 70s ones, and it's beaming down on the bleachers, and it can get a little warm. But I would still take it warm over cold. But I mean, the best are the crisp fall days. There's nothing that's going to beat that. The early games, if you can get again some of those 60-degree days, those are perfect too. But I definitely don't mind. The Seahawks game in the snow is still my favorite game that I've ever been to. There's a difference between the snow game where there's a little bit of humidity in the air and it almost feels like you're in and you're wearing the coat. It feels like you're in a blanket, and the Giants game where it's -20 where you're literally freezing to death. So there's differences there, but there's never a bad Packer game. And I don't care, what's going on. I'm always happy to be there, rain, sleet, snow, wind, whatever. It's always an amazing time at Lambeau Field.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been saying it. I've kind of come my most popular thing saying it lately. I keep telling everybody that there's nowhere else I'd rather be anywhere than at Lambeau on game day.
Yeah.
And then everybody will, well, you'd rather be at Lambeau than at the beach or whatever. And I said on game day,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
I'd rather be at
Easily.
Lambeau on game day over anything. So
Yep.
yeah, I completely agree. Not a bad day for a game ever. Okay, next one. Your least favorite NFL team.
I mean, probably the Vikings. I think there's just such a deep rooted dislike. They're wearing purple. Their dome kills birds. Like it's the rivalry, and
Absolutely.
Chicago always feels like we really don't like them, but it's somewhat respectful. Although
Yeah.
the constant off season winning every single year has been a little bit annoying. I think over the last I don't know forever, but yeah, I would still probably go Vikings.
Yep, that's where I'm at too. I grew up with a lot more Vikings fans around here as compared to Bears. Surprisingly, I just something about the Vikes. I don't know if it's just because their fans are pretty loud too, and there's really not much there, for substance wise for them to be talking a whole lot. But yeah, with the Bears, I'm kind of with you. It's more of a rivalry. There's some respect there. They pretty much saved us all
Tradition.
from, yeah, tradition. And so, yeah, I still got a little respect for the Bears and they've won a Super Bowl, won many championships. So,
And
I
they don't
can
have a
respect it a
stupid
little
horn
more.
in their stadium either, so that
Yeah.
helps.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That thing is, yeah, that thing is annoying. All right. Next one, a passion or hobby outside of sports.
Yeah, I love watching my boys play soccer. That's probably my favorite thing right now is just being able to see them kind of continue to grow and progress. My eldest is really good at it, so he's really fun to watch. And then my youngest is really catching on as well. So that's been really really fun. Outside of that, there's not a ton of like I've come, sort of made worlds collide a little bit. That my biggest hobby is my job, and it's a beautiful thing. I was, worried for a time that maybe that would be a bad thing. That now maybe it wouldn't be as fun of a thing for me, but it's still as fun. So I've kind of taken it, and this is kind of my main hobby, but it's also my main, thing that I love to do, in my job as well. So it's all kind of rolled into one thing. But outside of that, definitely, just hanging out with the family and watching the boys play soccer.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can resonate with that one a little bit. Um it seems like my family and I don't do a whole lot. We do, but it all revolves around, hanging out with other family or going on trips, half of them are to Green Bay. And then whatever the 3-year olds most interested in at the moment, whether it's, hitting up the park during the summertime, hitting up the pool, or wintertime is Chuck E. Cheese and trampoline park. So yeah, we're just kind of immersed. Whatever she's feeling, we're feeling. So I
Love
hear
it.
you there. Next one here: Packers, Brewers, or Bucks. Who wins the next championship first?
I'll still say the Packers. I think the Bucks are probably slightly kind of off on the decline coming off their championship win a few years ago. I'm still hopeful for this year, of course. Brewers just always feels like an impossibility, even though I know they're really good right now and they're really fun to watch. It just
Yeah,
the deck is so stacked against them that I just have almost no expectations always come playoff time. And then Packers always, feel like they have a puncher's chance when you've got a quarterback like they've had for forever. So, yeah, I will go Packers.
absolutely. And I didn't include the Badgers in there just because they're not pro, but with new college football playoffs, I'm hoping they can sneak in there sometime soon and make a little bit of noise. But we'll see. And I'm pretty excited about the game Friday. That'll hold me
Yeah,
over until next Friday.
agreed.
So, your least favorite Packers game of all time outside of Super Bowl 32?
I mean, 2014 Seahawks. I mean, there's no explanation needed. We don't even want to talk about that more. So I'll just say that one.
Absolutely. Do you think that one is worse than when we played the Bucks a couple years back at
Oh yeah,
Lambeau? Obviously, how
immediate,
that game.
absolutely. Because I mean, there's a million things that go wrong against the Seahawks, and there's just like one kind of goes right. You're in the Super Bowl, and they should have been in the Super Bowl, and they were the better team. They outplayed them all day. Yeah, there's a million just insanely frustrating little things in that game that will eat you forever. So yeah,
Yeah.
the Bucks game. I mean, the Bucks were good. First of all, now Brady obviously threw all the picks, and he gave you every opportunity to win that game too. But the Bucks were really good.
Yep.
And I didn't like there's a lot of like really crappy moments, but it wasn't like they were ahead and threw it up. And so I think that always is a worse taste in your mouth. I would even put 4th and 26 ahead of 2020. There's might even be a couple other ones I put ahead of 2020.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, we don't have to soak in any more of those.
Nope.
On the other end of the spectrum, your most favorite Packers game of all time, not including Super Bowls.
Yeah, the two that we kind of talked about a little bit already, the 92 Bengals game for obvious reasons, the Brett Favre, Kittrick Taylor back of the end zone, and the snow game, Packers Seahawks playoffs. They go down early. They stick with Ryan Grant. He runs for, I don't know, a ton of yards, a bunch of touchdowns. Favre has the play where he's tumbling over, throwing it sidearm in the snow. Just beautiful weather, beautiful atmosphere. That is peak Packers game, and I loved every second of it.
Absolutely. Okay. Last one here. You've got a chance to have dinner with one former Packer. Who would that be?
I don't know if this counts, but I'd probably go with Ron Wolf. I think that would just be a really interesting conversation. I would love to just pick his brain on everything Packers, how he put teams together. I mean, the Packers way is such a fascinating and amazing read. So I think my answer might be Ron Wolf. Bart Starr would very easily be in that conversation as well, as would Ted Thompson. So yeah, those would probably be like the immediate ones that I would think of, but I think Ron Wolf would go top of my list.
Awesome. All right, man. That's all I've got. Anything else you want to add here before we head out?
No, you can find me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can find the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts, as well as over on YouTube at Pack-A-Day Podcasts. And yeah, just appreciate you having me on. Thanks so much for all you do, and appreciate the time today.
Absolutely, man. I've also included the link to the Pack-A-Day Podcast in the description of this video, so be sure to, if you have not yet, subscribe to the Pack-A-Day channel. He's Andy Herman. I'm Rob Westerman. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great day.